Greetings and salutations, dear viewers. Welcome back once again to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV. Today we're tackling the final major thing added in the most recent patch, the World of Darkness. The World of Darkness is the final 24-man raid in the Crystal Tower saga, and it has us delving into the World of Darkness itself in an attempt to stop the darkness that's been seeping out and threatens the land. This is the place where the big demons play, so put on your serious pants as we go on in. As with the other Crystal Tower raids, expect this to take about 45 minutes or so to make your way through, and is structured much the same way, with a trash pull followed by a boss, followed by a trash pull, followed by a boss, followed by a trash pull, followed by a boss, followed by the final boss. Though this does make an attempt to mix up the trash pulls a little bit, and occasionally even give us a form of mini-boss instead of simply a bunch of enemies to defeat. And to be honest, I'm quite fond of it. I really enjoyed Labyrinth of the Ancients when it first came out, and I was very disappointed with Circus Tower. And I feel like World of Darkness, though I know what they were trying to accomplish with Circus Tower, I feel like World of Darkness does a very good job of melding the two. So with everybody ready, we can take off running. There's a small stretch here. You see the wormhole generator off to the right. If you die and have to return to the entrance, you can use that as a shortcut. And you run up to the first pull here, where you see 3 Garms. I believe the intention... And somebody left, so that's beautiful. What a bro. I believe the intention with these 3 Garms is that each of the 3 parties is supposed to take one and pull them out and fight them individually in each of the 3 relative safe spots that will appear in the arena. Suffice to say, that's simply not what anyone does. Usually someone will grab them and pull them towards the middle, and generally people will make very little attempt to actually keep hate on anything. After but a brief moment, you'll see 3 very large AoEs drop down in the room. You don't want to be standing in these at all. I've seen people continue to tank the 3 Garms in the small section in the middle of the room. If you see somebody do that, don't stand in the middle of the room, even though it's the only way to hurt them. Doing that is a death sentence. You have no room to dodge anything. So of course they're running everywhere, but do what you can to hit them when they're not standing in the middle of the AoEs. You'll notice, as with any other Chimera-type mob, they have many different attacks, directional based on the 3 heads, and they even have the different voices, which can then either electrocute you, as you saw there, or ice you from before. For the most part, you're just going to have to eat these, as the only real way to dodge them is to know what voice does what, and be paying attention to what all 3 of them do. To be honest, you're just going to get hit by things fairly often, but it's not that big a deal. Once you kill all 3 of them, things get a little simpler, since you're not juggling around guys that really shouldn't be juggled around. The 2-headed dragon will appear in the middle of the room, followed by a whole bunch of shinobi. The 2-headed dragon is simple enough. I tend to make it my priority, but the tanks should be trying to pick up the shinobi. Whether or not they do is another matter entirely. But especially once you get to this phase of the fight, other than the fact that there's a lot of shinobi running around and everybody's probably going to be focusing on the 2-headed dragon, there's not really a lot going on here to concern yourself with. I think he's got a frontal cleave attack, but other than that, he's just got a couple AoEs, but nothing that should catch you off guard. And once he's finally defeated, the Shinobis are still back here running amok. Hopefully the tanks have them under control, or I'm sure the mages are having a field day. And they as well don't really do much of note. Just tear them down just as you would any other random enemy. And these here are, especially once you get down to just the few left, why someone is using a knockback is beyond me. Again. With all of them defeated, the first area opens up. That was your first little bit of trash pull, and we move on to the first boss. The first boss is Angra Mainyu. Is it a Mayu? Angra Mainyu. It's an Ahriman type enemy, and as soon as everybody's ready, we'll run on in. As Ahriman enemies are known for, sort of, there's a lot of level spells and a lot of instant death in this fight, though there's also many ways to counter that, so despite that it's instant death, it's not that threatening. Well, nobody could decide who wanted the tank, so I guess Titan Eggy's going in. Now, Angra Mainyu himself has a couple attacks that you should worry about. The tank is going to be eating the big fancy laser, so that's wonderful. He does have a couple, for one, he has this one, which is, what was it, double vision or some such? You see half the arena, half of the arena in front of him is colored one color, the other half is colored different. There's a light side and a dark side. What you want to do is you want to get hit by alternating colors. Typically, I start by getting hit by the dark shade, which generally sets everything up later on, so it's much easier for me to be in position come the light shade next time. Unless he does it double at the start, which is very uncommon. But just know to keep toggling back and forth. You'll see a little status effect down in the corner that gets put on you. The status effect for having the dark effect on you is someone with like a little bit of red on their forehead, and then the status effect for the light one is someone with a little sweat drop next to them. Now a little ways in, he'll start up this attack here, which he'll summon 4 final hourglasses around the arena. This, though I've never actually seen it fail, I assume is a DPS check. You want to kill all 4 of these final hourglasses, though if you can, try to space it so when you kill the final one, you're not standing in the white zone. It's not actually that big a deal, though. Because that area turns red and is about to get hit by an attack, I believe everything in there is just going to get hit by an instant death. But, I don't know. I've never been hit by it. I don't think I've ever seen anybody get hit by it either. And then once that clears up, a couple ads will spawn, so power them down. They don't do anything that an Ahriman doesn't do. They do eyes on me, but I don't think they do anything, like, terrible. And usually while you're fighting them is the second time you'll see double vision come up, which is usually a good time for you to get hit by the light one if you got hit by the dark one first. Because the next time he does double vision will probably be while you're fighting an hourglass. So you're probably not going to be in a good position to careen across the arena to get into the light side. We'll see how that goes when I get there. Now, a couple other attacks that he has that I haven't mentioned is, for one, he has Mortal Gaze. Mortal Gaze, as he's doing here, simply look away from it. And you'll see Mortal Gaze dodged. I looked forward too soon, so I still got the effect on me. The effect is a death effect. It'll count down for about 5-6 seconds before you just die. If you do get that effect on you, as I did, simply look for the glowing circles around the arena and step on one, and away goes the effect. Now the other thing to keep in mind is the level 100 spells. or the level spells. I think there's a level 100 Flare and a level 150 Death, or some such. Or maybe it's the other way around. Now, given how the level spells worked before, they would generally only affect you if your level is a multiple of the level that's the level of the spell. So a level 5 Death will instantly kill you if your level is a multiple of 5. I said level 5 Death, right? Level 5 Death will kill you if your level is a multiple of 5. We're all level 50, but he uses level 100 and 150 spells. I assume what that does is you'll see a large circle appear around a single person. Everybody clear out of that circle, and you're safe. I assume what it does is it totals all of everyone's level within that circle. And if the total is a multiple of the spell, then you die. So say a level 100 Death, if 2 people were in it, everyone would die. I assume that's how it works. If only a single person is inside the circle, which honestly, as long as everybody clears out, you're safe. Because it will target one person, and that one person, I think, is bound in place. But when the effect goes off, you saw me dodge Mortal Gaze there by looking away. But aside from that one person who's bound in place by it, if everyone else clears out, no one gets hurt, and it's not that big a deal. So I wouldn't even worry about the mechanics of it. Just don't stand in it, and you should be safe. But Angramayu is almost dead here, so we should be finishing him off in just a moment. But that is the first boss of World of Darkness. A lot of really powerful attacks going on in that one, but nothing that dangerous. Now, for beating him, a piece of item level 120 equipment drops. Now, normally I would say because the Poetry Tome gear is also level 120 and can then be upgraded, I would originally say the 120 gear dropping here is kind of pointless. However, the stats on the Poetry Tome gear, at least for Monk, generally aren't the greatest stats. So what I've been doing is kind of mix-matching the gear from here with the Poetry Tome gear in order to get a set of gear with decent stats on it. At least until I get around to upgrading the Poetry Tome gear, at which point it almost doesn't matter what stats I are because it's 10 item levels higher than otherwise. But Angramayu's done, gone, passed. I got my item. And we arrive at the second trash pull, which then leads up to the second boss after this. Now this trash pull is once again not exactly a trash pull, and you'll see Queen Cilia in front of us, who you may remember her from Circus Tower. Now, in the original Final Fantasy game that the Crystal Tower here is based off of, the final segment of that Crystal Tower was also the World of Darkness. And in it, you fought a fair number of previous bosses, including Queen Cilia, as well as Xande, who you also fought in Circus Tower, and a number of other very large, big-named enemies. Now, Queen Cilia here does a few of the attacks that she did back during the previous fight. She has Unholy, which hurts a fair bit. But for the most part, none of it is powerful enough for you to worry about too much. Now, very shortly after the battle begins, you'll see a number of forbidden gates, 6 total, spawn around the arena. These are all casting a spell, and if they finish, they disappear and another enemy spawns. This enemy will actually fight back. So you want to kill as many of those forbidden gates as possible so you have as few adds to deal with when they eventually come out. We managed to kill 2 of them on our side, however, 1 Thor did manage to make it out. I'm not entirely sure what the other side did, but at least in that first group, only 6 spawn. And once you defeat Queen Cilia, a treasure coffer appears! Whoops, there's a boss inside! Something else from the original Crystal Tower. Now, as soon as Xande spawns, 3 more Forbidden Gates spawn. I'm actually going to do a bad thing and not attack that middle gate so you can see what spawns. That is a Jormungand. Alongside Thor, the Jormungand will also spawn in the second phase here, and he will always spawn from the middle gate, while Thor's will spawn from the outside too. There's still 6 portals total, 3 on either side. The Jormungand is a typical water-based enemy. He's got some AoEs and annoying things. And Xande also has a number of annoying moves that he had back in Circus Tower, but it's certainly not as traumatic as the original fight. For example, he has Ancient Quega, as he used there, and various melee attacks, but not a lot to concern yourself with too much. Some stuff hurts, but it's nothing that you can't deal with. And once Xande is down, this area is clear, and we can move on now to where the second boss proper awaits us. Now, the first time we took down Angramayu, and we've since killed a 2-headed dragon. Something else that spawned in the original is a 5-headed dragon. This one's all grown up. Oh no, they pulled him while I wasn't paying attention. Quick, get in there. The 5-headed dragon is mechanically a much less linear fight than before, where Angramayu has a set pattern that he goes through. The big deal with the 5-headed dragon is mostly that the 5 heads all have their own attacks, and each do different things to complicate it, and that you're dealing with so many mechanics at once is the major issue. One thing that he can do, for example, is you see the flare that's spawning over to the side, simply get out of the way of that one to not get hit by it. The luminescence orb you saw a moment ago does nothing for a little while. It eventually casts a spell, which hurts a little bit, so you just want to down them before that. The Dragonfire Fly you saw just a moment ago, well, I'll get to that one in a moment. You saw the ice appear off to the side. When the ice appears, it will slowly grow. So make sure you're not only not standing in it, but not standing near it. Or you may get caught in it and frozen. You do get unfrozen when it clears, though. And when you see that red mark on the ground, that means poison is going to hit the ground. And out of that will be a poison slime. I'm not entirely sure of how this works, but I'm told when you defeat the poison slime, someone gets a status effect on them that acts like a sponge. And you need to then go back and stand in the poison slime in order to soak it up so it's gone. Now, partway through the fight, he will start doing a DPS check, effectively, where you can actually target each of the individual heads. As long as you continue to attack the head with the lowest HP, you should be fine. Because what happens is as soon as one head is defeated, he stops casting the spell and starts casting it again. So you don't have to kill all the heads, you just have to kill one of them. This can be a little troublesome, though, seeing as everybody's going to be on different pages. Now, I mentioned about the luminescence, so taking that one down as before. Whenever you see the big swirly disc patterns in back, that means a luminescence is going to spawn, assuming you don't get hit by the thing in the first place. Well, honestly, even if you do get hit by the thing in the first place. You also saw a purple mark appear over someone's head a little while ago. If that purple mark when that purple mark hits someone, it actually distributes damage to everyone nearby. So if you see that over someone, everybody should crowd around that person so they take less damage. You don't need to take a huge amount of damage, though. Now, you saw the little flower symbol appear over somebody's head. Get the crap away from him. Because that's about to happen, and everybody in the vicinity goes flying. You saw the ice over on the other side, so of course I didn't want to get too close to that while I was trying to get away from the flower. It's not that this fight is particularly hard, and none of the mechanics are very complicated. It's more so that they're coming at you in a seemingly random manner, and that you just have to deal with many of them at once. As the fight goes on, you'll be dealing with more and more and more of them. Now you see the Dragon Firefly appear again. I skimmed over him before, but you see a chain connecting to someone. The Dragonfly is continuously hitting that person for damage, and that damage will amp up and amp up and amp up the longer it's connected to that person, to the point that it will eventually just kill them off. So if you get hit by that, simply wait until you're taking a decent amount of damage, and then run into somebody else to give them the chain, so you're not taking the entire brunt of it. You kind of have to trade it off. Now, near the end of the fight, about a quarter of his HP left, he will do a move called Heat Wave. This move isn't really that big a deal. It puts a status effect, a heat wave type status effect on you, and this heat wave will simply pulse 500 damage a tick until you take 2,000 to 3,000 damage. It's a lot of damage, but there's no real mitigating it or dealing with it or dodging it or anything. So healers just need to be prepared that everybody's going to be hurting. You can see here, once again, we're still dealing with more mechanics, and we're dealing with a lot of mechanics. We managed to kill all of the slimes coming out. There's also a couple other, I think those are just AoEs that hit the ground. But we're getting to the point where I feel like enough enemies are going to be spawning that it's not worth our time to try to deal with all of them, and we should just focus down the boss. He's only got a couple percentage points left, so especially when there's now 4, 5 slimes running around, there's a luminescence spawning over there, there's 6 slimes and a luminescence. Fudge him. He has got like 5% low health left. Just kill him off. Now, as previously, the drop is once again another piece of item level 120 equipment. Of note is exactly like the previous Crystal Tower raids, you can only lot on 1 item per week. So once you get your item, you're locked out for the week. My item, which you saw earlier, was those gloves that I got. And now that I've got them, I get to wait until next week. I had to run this thing like 8 times in order to get those dumb gloves, though. Oh, but the 2 pieces I already have dropped a ton. Now, with the second boss down, we're moving forward to the trash pull, which isn't really a trash pull so much as it is a mini-boss. Now, this is where there's 3 portals sending you to 3 areas. Left, middle, and right. That's Alliance A, B, and C. We're B, so we went in the middle, which took us to Atomos. Now here, not only are we fighting Atomos, we're fighting Atomos Prime. Now, Atomos Prime, if you can see, is the large crystal in the middle of the arena. And of course, we're dealing with darkness, so what would a darkness anything be without Atomos? Now, the individual Atomoses will die fairly quickly. However, they'll simply be revived again. What happens is when one dies, Atomos Prime gives up some health in order to revive that Atomos. So by killing these, we're doing damage to Atomos Prime. Now, a couple other things that the individual Atomoses will do is, for one, he'll summon up the second boss from Circus Tower, who largely just runs around and punches things, but he also summons those annoying discs. Another thing that Atomos will do, you'll eventually see him target someone. When he targets that person, get away from that person. because he'll eventually turn towards that person and suck them in, which will suck in everybody in the vicinity. He then turns and spits them all out a moment later. You may have seen this arena has 2 levels to it, an inside and an outside. You can get knocked out of the inside, so you're unable to attack Atomos anymore, and you're stuck standing on the outside of the arena. This is where the small lit circles appear around the arena. When you step on one, it activates the bounce pads on someone else's platform, a different alliance's platform. Wow, what is going on with Alliance C? So you see we all got knocked off there, so we're waiting for another alliance to step on their little glowy circle in the middle, son of a gun. Which will then activate our bounce pads so we can hop back up. So really you should just have someone ranged, running around continuously activating them. That way other parties don't have to ask and they don't have to wait. Atomos also has a knockback ability, which, if you see him ready that, which simply watches cast bar, Shockwave, there it is. If you see him ready that, be sure to run almost on top of him, and you shouldn't be knocked out. If you're standing outside of that little black spot around him, you'll probably be knocked out of the arena and have to wait to get bounced back up again. So we're just trying to finish off the ad that he spawned, then we can get back to work on Atomos himself. Atomos Prime is almost dead. Alliance C made a last-ditch recovery. This place is actually reasonably good for recovery, I feel, because the outside is reasonably safe. So if you do all get knocked off, you have a chance to sort of recover without having to, like, fight someone simultaneously. Though you are hurting everyone's DPS, and doing that is preventing another party from having their pads activated. There is an instant death mechanic if all 3 parties get knocked entirely off their platforms. Now with Atomos down, we can now move on to the 3rd boss, Cerberus. Now there are 2 different strategies for this fight, but it seems like the overarching strategy is, as I'm mentioning here in the chat, Alliance A gets the ads, Alliance B gets the belly, and Alliance C gets the chains. Though, to be honest, anyone available can get the chains. And, to be honest, Alliance A, or Alliance C could also help with the ads. The most important thing, really, is that Alliance B go into the belly. The other strategy is simply to have all DPS go into the belly instead. This hastens this phase up considerably, and then lets them bounce back out and help down the ads very quickly. I'm told it goes much, much faster, but at the same time, I feel like you're splitting it one way or the other, and you're going to have to do the same total damage one way or the other. It's probably faster, but I don't think it's as much faster as people claim it to be. So as you're beating on Cerberus for a little while, he'll eventually break free of his chains. He's got a... As far as I can tell, this starts the eating phase, but doesn't do a lot else. You'll see him spew out this gastric juice, which if you get hit by, the AoE that it spawns out, you'll be minied, and now you're all tiny. Run over where this purple goop has landed in a different part of the arena, and he eats you. We're in Alliance B, so we're going into the belly. Now once we're in here, you'll see 4 spots of stomach wall around the arena. Your goal here is to defeat all 4 pieces of stomach wall. Once all 4 pieces are destroyed, you'll get jettisoned out of the belly, and Cerberus will then slump to the ground in pain, allowing you to re-chain him. While you're doing this, a couple ads will spawn, the Unknowns. To be honest, the Unknowns... You can destroy the stomach walls fast enough that I honestly wouldn't even mess with the unknowns. If you've got a tank in here, just let the tank grab them all and just blitz down the stomach walls. But I'm showing you the inside of the belly here, and I'm glad I got the chance to do so. Meanwhile, outside, the purple stuff that if you step in, you get eaten by Cerberus. If you're not minied, him getting eaten by him is instant death. So don't stand in that if you're not minied. Now you can see, as soon as he slumps to the ground in pain, as soon as we're done inside, someone has grabbed a chain from the back and runs it up to the open fetter here, where they have to run up and reconnect it to rebind him. Now with Cerberus rebound, the fight can continue and you can keep wailing on him here. I do believe the longer Cerberus remains unchained, the more stacks of a haste debuff he gets. To the point that if you don't deal with the belly phase very quickly, he'll eventually just be mauling everyone. Now the second time around, once he's in the chain phase, a couple little orbs of lightning will appear that'll shoot directional AoEs around the room. He also has a large dash across the arena, so if you see him ready that, get out of the way. And he has a tail swipe, because why wouldn't he? Of note is whenever the little lightning orbs shoot their lasers, he will do a tail swipe at the exact same time. So if you're in melee range with him, you may be a little out of luck as to having somewhere safe to run to, because you will be fairly restricted. This phase, continuing on, do enough damage and eventually, actually I don't think it's even damage, it may just be time, before he breaks free from his chains again. He'll drop the AoE once again with the gastric juice. Also has a 3-directional AoE because he's got 3 heads. But he'll eventually drop the gastric juice again. This juice, it targets one person, so they can place it in a convenient location. And you can actually see it dropping down in the far corner there. Or actually, no, that's the purple goo, not the gastric juice. But the whole time, now, despite that the rest of my party is going inside his belly to deal with that, I'm actually going to be a very bad party member and not. Just so I can show you what's going on outside during that time. You can continue fighting Cerberus here, but while that purple goop on the ground exists, these little leaf-type enemies, whose name escapes me and I simply can't read, Wolfsbane, will continuously spawn from that purple goo. This is where Alliance A was then designated to dealing with the Wolfsbane. So you get to run over and deal with these, so you don't get too many ads piling up, before you can go back to dealing with Cerberus. Deal with Cerberus when you get the chance, but you'll probably be dealing with the Wolfsbane predominantly, while the party inside is dealing with Cerberus. Now, if memory serves, defeating the stomach walls inside Cerberus do actually hurt Cerberus. It does reduce his HP. At the very least, I think it does while everything's done. I'm in a little bit of danger here because I'm not inside, which means nobody can hear me. But when they finish up inside, you see Cerberus took an amount of damage and kind of keeled over. That's probably one of my favorite fights in World of Darkness. Now for beating him, just as before, you're given one piece of item level 120 gear, exactly the same as before. I tried to pan the camera around on during the running parts of this, just so I could show you going from the cathedral to a little spot outside of a cathedral. But after Cerberus, in a broken down cathedral, there's a portal. Now, you've been able to see a very large ball of darkness in the distance throughout this fight. And that is what we are fighting within. Say hello to the Cloud of Darkness, the final boss of the World of Darkness. Now that everybody's realized that they actually need to stand on the little glowy platforms, we can try to take on the Cloud of Darkness a second time. Hopefully this round goes better. The Cloud of Darkness, unlike, say, the five-headed dragon fight, is actually a very structured fight. There is a very strict pattern to it. It's not nearly as chaotic as many of the other fights. Though there are still a number of mechanics that are quite dangerous. The tanks are very hesitant today. Now, Cloud of Darkness has, as far as I can tell, it doesn't actually have a front and back. It will always be facing in the one direction, but it doesn't actually even have an arrow pointing forward, so it doesn't matter where you stand. There is no front or back or side to the Cloud of Darkness. Though you'll pretty much always be attacking its front. There's no real other way to get to it. Now, its regular attack is just those couple little orbs that fire off and hit. When the Cloud of Darkness disappears, quickly look around the arena and figure out where it reappears, because it's about to fire a rather large laser across the arena. Now, I'll try to get the camera to turn around so you can see what's going on in the actual arena, but you'll eventually see somebody marked with a symbol and a large AoE appear around them. The person marked with that symbol will be chased by an attack that hits where the AoE landed. So you saw them take off running around the arena with this explosion chasing them. Now, another mechanic here are these little glowing symbols on the floor. You need one person standing on each of them in order to mitigate the damage. Everyone standing inside of one of those will take a small amount of damage, but if they don't stand in one of them, it will explode, hurting everybody in the raid for, I'm pretty sure, more damage than that one person would have taken otherwise. All it takes is a couple, 2 or 3 of those to not have a person in it, and you will probably be in a near wipe condition. So you have to keep your eye out for those little symbols that appear on the ground, and melee shouldn't need to chase them down, but do it anyway because people are dumb. Short ways into the battle, you'll see the ground start to glow with this yellow pattern on it. That's the Cloud of Darkness sucking in these little dark clouds and dark storms. For every one of these that actually manages to get to the Cloud of Darkness, she'll gain a stack of a damage up buff. All it takes is 1 or 2 of these to make it to her before you will wipe. Oh, and during this phase, the little circle spawn. Not nearly as many as spawn normally. It's usually just 2 or 3, but do keep your eye out for them still. Now, the little dark clouds and dark storms are susceptible to a heavy status, so put that on them to keep them from moving. It's about the only chance you'll have to be able to down all of them before they manage to get to the Cloud of Darkness. I'm pretty sure we didn't have any get eaten there, so the massive attack that went off only hurt a few of us. But from there, for at least a brief amount of time, the Cloud of Darkness goes back to its regular pattern. However, you saw it just shoot out a whole bunch of little energy balls that went into the ground. It's time to play whack-a-mole, as all these little snakes will pop up out of the ground. All these snakes, I'm honestly not even sure what they do, but they need to die. However, despite the popping in and out, one attack will kill them. It's like whack-a-mole. So you've just got to down all of them as quickly as you can. They won't go away. In time for the next attack. Now you saw us set markers down on the arena, in A, B, and C. Stay with your alliance, and at this point, get to where your marker is and start attacking the cloud that appears in the middle. It starts casting spell. You do not want that spell to go off. After a very brief moment, walls will appear around that target and lock anyone out, so everybody pile in. Once yours is dead, the walls go away. You've hopefully avoided potentially a wipe. I don't know what happens. I've not actually seen that go off. And then you can go back and start wailing on the Cloud of Darkness proper again. And at this point, the pattern repeats, albeit more difficultly. And of course, somebody wasn't standing in one. Somebody wasn't standing in the one that was at melee range. There were a lot more of those that time you saw, though. So, even the second time, be prepared. At this point, you see all of these dark clouds. There's also a lot more of them the second time round, so you're going to be at this for an amount longer. Looks like most of the parties are recovering. They took quite the burst from that. Looks like everybody's recovering though, so with any luck we can still make our way through this. But down the clouds, down the storms, be sure to keep your eye peeled for the symbols that appear on the ground and stand in them so we don't wipe. As you saw before, even one of them not having someone in it really hurt the Alliance. If you're not sure where one is or what's going on because they spawn everywhere, there is the enmity list off to the left side of the screen that shows everything in the arena. So you can look for those and go, oh yeah, there is still a storm around, so take a quick pan around and see it. Thankfully, I don't think any of them made it to the Cloud of Darkness, so the major attack goes off, and we are reasonably safe. Now once again, we're going back to the pattern from before. We also have to be sure to stand in the circles, and we're playing whack-a-mole. And after a brief moment, we're going to have the three clouds appear again, so you're going to want to run back in there and do that phase once again. Yep, there we go. Now the second time around, I noticed the Cloud of Darkness didn't disappear and then reappear and shoot the laser the second time. So perhaps the second time around, she simply isn't giving us as much time to deal with the snakes. But that phase goes just as it did before, down yours in particular. With any luck, you'll avoid taking a bit of damage there. And at this point, the Cloud of Darkness repeats the pattern yet again, going back to the very beginning, but she should be low enough at this point that you should be able to finish her off before anything else major happens. So keep wailing on her, stand in your circles, handle mechanics as you need to, if you need to, and hopefully your alliance manages to pull things off. When you're dealing with this many people, you're sure to find some incompetence somewhere. But that is the World of Darkness, the final in the Crystal Tower era, and the last, at least for the moment, 24-man raid. So until next time, everyone, your reward is yet another piece of item level 120 gear. Until next time, everyone.